The stars shimmered coldly in the sky above as I trudged through the icy alien landscape, my breath misting in the frigid air. My boots crunched against the brittle snow, and each step sent a jolt through my body, the cold biting through the layers of my thermal suit. I was stranded here on an unknown planet after a freak accident with my shuttle. The transmission to command had been scrambled beyond recognition, and with no immediate way to contact Earth, I was left to my own devices. The storm had picked up again, and visibility was near zero. The winds howled in a constant, unyielding crescendo, whipping the snow around like 1,000 tiny knives. My body was beginning to betray me, shivers shaking through my frame, muscles locking up from the bitter cold. I needed shelter, and fast. In the distance, I saw a faint glow, a flicker of warmth that could mean life, or something far worse. It was a small structure, barely visible amidst the swirling snow, but it was unmistakably there. I shifted my direction, hoping beyond hope that I wasn't about to make a grave mistake. I arrived at the small hut after what seemed like an eternity. The door was ajar, and a soft, inviting light spilled out from within. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the threshold, the chill of the wind biting at my exposed skin. But the promise of warmth and refuge outweighed my doubts. I stepped inside. The door creaked shut behind me with a soft thud, and I found myself in a small, dimly lit room. The warmth was almost immediately comforting, the air thick with the scent of something unfamiliar, earthy, yet tinged with an exotic sweetness that filled my senses. The walls were made of some type of organic material that I couldn't identify, its surface smooth and almost alive in its texture. Strange symbols and markings adorned the walls, their meaning completely alien to me. A small fire crackled in the center of the room, the light dancing across the walls. It was contained within a metal basin, but the flames had an odd, blue hue, giving the room an ethereal glow. A strange device hummed softly in the corner, casting an eerie blue light over the room. At the far end, seated on a cushion, was the alien girl. She was unlike anything I had seen before. Her skin was a pale, almost translucent shade of violet, and her long, silken hair cascaded down her back in a cascade of silver, shimmering in the firelight. Her eyes were large, wide, and a striking shade of amber that seemed to pierce right through me. She was slender, delicate, with a grace that was almost ethereal. The way she sat, her legs crossed, the faintest smile playing on her lips. She looked serene, almost innocent. But there was something about her that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I tried to speak, but my lips were chapped and frozen, the words catching in my throat. My teeth chattered uncontrollably, and the cold seemed to creep into my very bones. The alien girl stood gracefully and stepped toward me. Without a word, she raised her hand, and a soft, warm glow enveloped my body. The cold began to recede, the numbness in my fingers and toes gradually fading. She motioned for me to sit beside her, her voice soft but commanding. "Warm yourself," she said, her voice melodic and strange. The words sounded familiar, yet foreign, as if I had heard them in a dream. I hesitated for a moment before doing as she asked. My body was still trembling from the cold, but her presence, calm and soothing, somehow made it bearable. I sank to the floor beside her, careful not to get too close. I was thankful for the warmth of the fire, but there was an unease in my gut. Something was off. I tried to shake it off, focusing on the heat slowly returning to my body. The girl, however, kept her gaze locked on me, her eyes never leaving mine. The intensity of her stare made me uncomfortable, as if she was studying me, probing my thoughts. "You are from the stars, aren't you?" she asked suddenly, her voice almost a whisper, but it carried a weight of knowledge, as though she had seen things that no being should know. I nodded, unsure of how to answer. I'm a human. From Earth. She tilted her head, her long silver hair shifting around her face like a veil. Earth? The blue world, yes? Her voice held a trace of something ancient, almost predatory. I nodded again. I couldn't speak, couldn't bring myself to say more. Her presence was overwhelming, like a silent pressure pressing down on me from all sides. She smiled, but it was not the innocent smile I had expected. It was subtle, almost knowing. You've traveled far. You've seen many things. I've seen a few, I replied, though I felt as if I were treading on dangerous ground. You seek shelter, she said softly, almost to herself, as if contemplating something far beyond me. But you have stumbled into more than you realize. I frowned. What do you mean? For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she stood and stepped closer, her presence enveloping me. She reached out, placing a hand gently on my shoulder, her touch warm but firm. I could feel the faint hum of energy around her, a strange power that vibrated beneath the surface of her skin. The cold of the storm outside is nothing compared to the storm within, she murmured. You think you are lost, but I have found you. And now you are mine. Her words sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the storm outside. Before I could react, her hand moved, and I felt a sudden surge of energy pulse through me. It wasn't physical. It was deeper inside my mind, inside my soul. Her amber eyes seemed to glow brighter, and I felt a tugging sensation in my chest, as if something was being pulled from me. My heart raced and panic gripped me. Let me go, I shouted, but my voice was weak, fading beneath her influence. She smiled, but it was no longer a pleasant gesture. You think you can escape? You think you can run from what you truly are? What do you want from me? I managed to gasp, struggling against the invisible grip tightening around my chest. I want nothing from you, human, she whispered, her voice laced with dark amusement. I want you to understand. Understand what you are. What you've always been. Her eyes deepened, becoming almost black, and the room seemed to warp around me. I realized then, with a sense of growing horror, that she wasn't as innocent as she had appeared. Her delicate, ethereal beauty was a mask, one that hid something far more dangerous. She was not merely an alien, not merely a creature of beauty. She was something ancient, something powerful, and I had walked into her trap. But it wasn't too late. There was a spark of defiance left in me, a final ember of resistance. With every ounce of will I could muster, I pushed back, forcing my mind to reject her influence, to break free of the hold she had over me. The girl's expression faltered, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. For a moment, her grip loosened, and I took the opportunity to break free. I staggered back, gasping for air, my mind racing. The cold outside seemed more inviting than the madness I had just encountered. Without looking back, I rushed to the door, flinging it open and stepping back into the storm. The winds battered me, but they felt safer than the alien girl's presence. My body was still freezing, but I didn't care. The storm had swallowed me whole, and I ran, not knowing where, but knowing I had to get as far away from her as possible. I never saw the girl again, but the storm, the cold, it never fully left me.